Hey everyone, it's Johnny Struggles here, talking about a game called Shapes, or well, formerly called Shapes.io. However they said it, Shapes.io, Shapes.io. Now it's just called Shapes. It is a cool little puzzle game. Uh, on the side here, he's white triangle flower guy. The game, how it normally works, is a shape is produced here, or shown here. You need to create that shape from objects on the map. You harvest, like here, squares, harvest color. You have machines to stack and cut and paint things, and you try to recreate these shapes and then push them to the hub in the middle of the map here. You deliver them to the hub, and then once you deliver so many, you get a new shape and a new level. Right now, I'm on level 27. And when you hit 27, I think after you, I don't know if it's 26 or 27, but once you beat level 26, I think that gives you the last upgrade, and after that point, you can build a machine to build all the shapes for you. You have all the components to build an automated process to build any shape you want. And that's where I'm at in the game right now. This is my second playthrough of this game, and I kind of started from scratch after this first one, from learning how to play the game and then going through it again and trying to optimize some things instead of just redoing it on the first map or first playthrough. So let me give you a little tour of what I set up for my automation. I think it's pretty good, in my own humble opinion. Okay, so here's the beginning of everything. I'm delivering four shapes. You got the circle, square, star, and I guess they call this a flower. Comes in here and there's logic. Whatever shape is required gets pushed through here. And then over here next to it is all the paint colors. We got 7 paint colors. There's 8 colors because the 8th color is unpainted. But anyway, 7 colors are all being delivered. And the next step, these get divided to the painters. So I have 4 painters here because that works out. A full belt of circles can go feed 4 painters. And then after that, I got cutters. So in this case, we're painting all these 4. We go to cutters and we get the one shape we want. So the way this works is this piece on a layer of your shape. So let's say this top layer here. There's 4 corners. So this machine does one corner. Next one over here does the next corner, and the 4th one here does the last corner. So that gives us one whole layer of shape. And there's 2 layers here, and of a possible 4 layers. So these 4 guys are doing one layer, a corner of each layer. So we get the right shape that comes through, it gets painted, and gets cut and positioned the way it needs to be. The guy next to him does the same thing for the next corner. Above that, we got a complicated thing where they stack together, which just puts that half side together. Same thing over here for the other half. So these 2 guys down here, again, does the 2 corners, paints them, stacks them together, so then you have 2 halves of the shape of the layer, and then another set of stacking, same as before, but puts them into the object. So now we get that layer's object completed. And then it meets up with the output of the machine next to it, or the same thing next to it for another layer. As you see the blue circle, I'm making the blueprint guy for copy and pasting, which I won't really get into, I guess. I don't know. Just making a ton of these guys on top of my normal one. Anyway, so it adds them together, pushes them along, and if we had a 3rd layer that would get combined here, actually the 3rd and 4th. So the 3rd and 4th layers I've done the same way up here. 3rd and 4th layers would get combined here. Sorry. Yeah, 3rd and 4th layers get combined here, and then the 1st and 2nd plus the 3rd and 4th get combined here at the end. Let me zoom out here. So these guys, this is one layer. This is one layer. I should say right here it gets combined. Layer 1, or top layer. Next layer is combined here, and then those 2 are put together. At the same time, the 3rd and 4th layers are built and stacked here. So if you had 4 layers, the bottom half and top half, or the top half and bottom half, would get combined at the same time to speed it up, and then those layers would get combined to make the 4 stack total. If there's a lot of logic behind this, because you got some complicated things. Like in the case of the objects unpainted, well, I'm pushing these through a painters, and if the object's unpainted, then the object's going to sit in front of the painter because there's nothing to paint, because no paint's getting fed through. Paint's only fed through if you need to paint it. So I got this filter here If it needs to be unpainted, I got logic to say skip the painters and just cruise on through to the cutters. So then he'll push on through and get cut through here. Then you have other logic. Let's say that this corner doesn't have an object. It's just blank. It's 3/4 of a circle or something. But either way, then we can't stack them together because if there's no object on this side, these stackers don't work. You'll just have a pile up on the one side. So there's logic saying on these filters here, if there isn't an object here, then skip those guys and just bypass the stacker. So that's what these lines on the right here, bypass stacks. The other side has the same rules. If there isn't an object to stack, then just skip the stackers and move on to the next phase, next area. So unselect that, slowing things down. And same in the next level. To stack the whole object, if say the half the object wasn't anything there, then just skips these stackers and moves on through. And that's the basis of what's being done here. And at that point, again, it combines together. If there wasn't a layer to be stacked, it would bypass these stackers and just move on to the next area. And kind of the same logic going into there. Yeah, so if there's just no layer, just bypasses the stacking and moves on through. And here at the very end, this top icon is what's being produced, and the bottom icon is a signal being sent for the object that needs to be created. So it's just an easy way to make sure that my machine is actually creating the right object to match against what's being told to be created. And right now, the hub says to make a different object. What the object here, this flower thing. But I told it for testing purposes, I don't want this thing to make the object. So I was testing, making sure things are getting done right. I pushed the signal for that object instead. At least to get some extra blueprints out of the testing phase. This line here has the actual object signal. So when I'm done testing, which I'm basically done, I'm going to push that signal through and let it start producing the proper items. Okay. So the thing is, like this object here says they need to create 4 of them per second. I think that's right, if I remember right. 4 per second, which I'm going to way overproduce because in this game I have 4 full belts. And right now my belt speed tops out at 19.99 items per second. So it just rounds up to 20. So right now I'm feeding 80 items per second. Well, technically 60 items per second right here. 80 because of the normal one I was producing anyway. But if it's a different object, it'd be 60 items per second. And then I have my mechanism I created to push way above that, to put 8 more belts full speed in there. That's a pretty tricky thing. So for those who know, these storage items hold up to 4,000 items, but the signal they push out, you can't say when you reaches 300 items, release the objects in the container. It doesn't work like that. You can't do a signal like that. The signal from it is either the shape signal or full capacity or not. So you can't do much with that. So I created this thing down here, these splitters, as a timer, basically, a crude timer. So I'm feeding this 4th belt into these guys. The left output is primary, feeds the object in the right first, the storage first, and then goes to the next guy, next guy, next guy, all the way around. And the output of the last guy refeeds all these storage bins. So that's how it builds up the storage. See, it's getting close to 200 now. Now this timer works where it hits about 240, and then it'll hit through all these splitters to finally go through, like right there, and boom, everything releases. Now we have all these belts hitting 20. Should hit 20. If I look at production now, this guy normally should be 60 or 80, I guess. This should jump up to like 260. Let's see what happens here. Yep, 240. It'll vary. I don't know how often this thing captures the results of this, but it gives you a huge spike. Thought being, that'll push me past that delivery response. So there's a huge spike. This time it said 240, sometimes it says 260, sometimes more. It varies. Like I said, I don't know how often it samples it, but I'm assuming that should get the game pretty far along. I'm guessing, I'm hoping. This is my second playthrough. The first one, I only had 1 belt supplying it, and I got to level 359, and the mechanism I made there was just like a belt buffer. I just used a bunch of belts, and when the last belt built up, it released everything, and I'm at a point now where it can't pass through level 359 because there's not enough buffers to deliver enough items. I think this will more than, well, it does a lot more than that other one does. So I got that going on. Like I said, the basic thing is it hits the storage byte goes to the next each one, and then they actually fill up when this last one goes back and refills the individual ones. That starts building up the storage, and these splitters here, just the crude timer. And right now, like, so if I added another green splitter here and push this out one more, this should theoretically about double the time it takes, since every other one goes one direction or the other. So if I add another blue splitter here to go back, that should double the amount of time it takes for the next one to actually get through. So the storage would be like 400 and some items. So if need be, if I could do that if I needed more throughput in here to force the high limit on the time, the high limit of the sample. The last thing is this filter here. So when these guys release, he changes directions to feed right into the box to give me a full 12 lines right in here. Otherwise it'd just be 11. So as soon as that released, he fed back directly, and when he stops, he should cut back this way once all these guys emptied out. Boop, there he goes. So in theory, so if the shape changes at that point, he just, well, if the shape changes, all the extra ones that doesn't match the shape, delete. So I got these filters right before, where's my mouse cursor? Right for the end. If the shape doesn't match what's being requested, it just deletes to get this stuff out of the way. That's one thing I did big time on this one, was when the shape changes between levels, once you hit this thing, you get a new shape. I had a lot of old parts and stuff randomly on this map, on the machine, and they would just kind of clog up things for a bit, which wasn't a big deal, just is not as efficient as it could be. So if I go back to the beginning, I'll show you some of that and why some of the stuff is as big as it is. So every place you see a garbage can is a filter. If what is supposed to be delivered isn't what's supposed to be delivered, it gets put in the garbage can. So if the shape changes from a circle to a square, instead of these circles getting painted, they go in the garbage can before getting to the painter. Anything past that point gets painted, but it should just be a couple items. Same with the paint. If it changes color, all this white paint queued up on the belt will just shoot to the garbage can and hurry up and get the next color in the queue. That way, as soon as the color changes, it will stop painting shapes. And the next shape, even if it was a circle there, should get the new color or something's close. Either way, it really cuts down on what needs to be there. And then right after that, I got a garbage can anyway. So when everything changes, it doesn't get to the cutter. Everything should go to the garbage. And the next area, the stacking area, same thing in my last map. This was a lot smaller. The stackers were pretty tight. I had 8 of them together real tight next to each other. But I had a lot of belts. So when the shape changed, if the objects are going to be different, most likely you won't get the same color and shape twice in a row. Sometimes it can happen, but most likely not. So I had all these belts with all these objects on it that weren't what needed to be stacked. So when the new objects came in, all these old objects had to get stacked and made the wrong shape, which lasted a while. You had to chew through all these old objects to get caught up to clear the belt. So this is what I did. I put a filter as close as I could on both sides. So there's just one belt, one section of belt on each side before the stacker. So there's just going to be a couple objects getting stacked. So there's going to produce a couple wrong objects instead of a whole bunch. And there's a garbage can right there, so anything that's the wrong object immediately gets deleted. It clears it out. And then going past this point, so still there's going to be some stuff. There's a bypass, and if it's the wrong shape, it deletes it. But if it keeps going down through here, feeding the next machine, it's the same thing. There's a garbage can and a filter. If it doesn't match the object it's expecting, garbage can. So I've tried to be a lot more efficient with this design and just clear things out, clear the belts out as much as possible before any operation happens. And after the cutting and painting, everything else is just stacking. So just copy and paste this design and connect belts together and put the logic circuits together. So it makes things run pretty quick. When the object changes, these things get cleared out pretty quickly and move along. And you can see I got a display showing the object being painted here, or being produced to that section. This section is not doing anything, but I have some old objects here, so when there's no signal, there's no signal. So that's why this says not plugged in. Right now, there's no layer 3 here, or I guess layer 4 to be, 3 and 4 to be stacked down here. So there's not getting any signals, nothing's being done here. Once there's a signal, then these things would push through. But anyway, things get cleared up pretty quickly and move through to the final hub. Now, I've done through some testing, so I know things work pretty well, but let's just alter my shape here to add another layer or two. And let's see. Remember the things are. So C is circle, I think S is star, uncolored. We'll do no object. Is S star or square? I don't remember now. Windmill? Maybe windmill is the flower one. Yeah, that might be it. And yellow, is that yellow? And then we'll do do a circle, and R is red. Okay, so that's another level. And then let's do, let's do reverse. CRSU dash dash WY. Okay, and it cleared, so that means it's valid. Hit OK. And now it's producing this funky guy. So there's belts are getting cleared out. So let's shoot up here. Here's the two shapes. They look like they match. So these guys should be producing if I didn't screw it up. Here we go. So this shape is coming down here. So what's happened is the layers got shifted over. What I was making the lower levels get pushed down here to this area. And they're coming through to the final stackers here, queuing up. See, everything got deleted before. All those blue objects got deleted since they got a signal, and what the old stuff is still sitting there. So it's going to produce some junk at first. And that should get cleared out right here. They will not pass these deletes, these filters. So if they don't match this shape, they get deleted before going to the hub. Okay, so there's a delay. Oh, crap. I have something wrong here. Did I find a bug? I found a bug. It's the wrong direction. It's expecting this stack. Oh, wait, no. Are we just missing the stack? We're missing something. Something's not right. We are. Something's not right. It's expecting this object, but that is... We're missing a signal here. This guy's broken. What did we do? He's not getting a signal at all. He's getting that arrow. Oh, he didn't skip, did he? He's getting that. It needs to be that diamond up there, a star shape. But he's getting no signal to stack. So he's wanting to stack, but there's nothing to stack it with. So there's the problem. Actually, there's nothing being delivered. Did I miss a shape here? Oh! Belt. Okay, well, it's a good thing I tested this. I think I'll let this run. Do I have anything else screwed up like that? Huh. Okay, well, the logic should be right. So yeah, he's skipping because there's nothing to stack with it here. Just a 1 star and a blank. There we go. Oh my goodness. I thought I was going to rework the logic. Thankfully I did not. Okay, so he's feeding along now. Getting stacked here. They're moving through. So all the old stuff's getting through. So only the good stuff goes past this point to the next stackers. So again, when the bad stuff getting stacked first, clear out the old junk. We'll get pushed out and then hit the garbage cans. Alright, so then all the good stuff's going through. And it started getting delivered here. Then it'll flow through the process of 60 items per second, and then dump it out to get a huge burst of number delivered per second. And I'll see how long it lasts, but I'm at a point now, since I just made that one fix, I'm going to double check all the belts real quick to make sure all the paint and shapes are being delivered properly, and that is not an issue. Lucky I caught that. That'd have been a silly mistake to run into when I want to normally. I'm just, at this point, I didn't want to, this is the first automated object you can make. I wanted to run the game from here, from this point. So is that 57? I like this design, it's pretty good. I think this is a pretty slick way of building up a timer, since there's no real timer you can use. Originally what I used was this guy here, the flow center, and I just used the belts, built up the belts, and the last belt had one of these on it, so once an object hit it, it told everything to release. And that worked to a degree, but it got me to level 359. I think I can get much higher. There we go. Oh, that's pretty neat. Pretty slick. And this one clears up first, because it's always at 1 or 2 objects behind. It's also the closest one, so. And reset, so it's pretty slick. So let me quickly check everything to make sure these belts look like they're feeding something. I mean, there's stuff here, unless I screwed something up farther away. It's all the same thing. Hopefully I don't miss anything. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff on the map is just delivering colors. So there's no, you can build whatever you want in the belts. There's no resources together to build things. You just build whatever you want once it's available. So I have stuff like really far away. It doesn't matter, because once the belt's full, it feeds it. Like these flower objects here. So that you can't ever find 4 sides of these guys. So you got to split them and produce them. So I got this set up here to produce a belt at max speed. If I had a speed speedometer, a couple speedometers to see the flow, but if I had one in here, it showed 20 on it. So I got plenty of these out here, but once the belt's full, you're going to get full flow. Doesn't matter how far away it is, so this design had things farther out. If I was going to do this again, I would have this closer to the hub so it was a quicker response time to everything. I would push things closer, but I didn't want to delete and redo all the stuff I had out here. I could have probably just cut and pasted it, and then I had to redo all the painting stuff. I didn't want to deal with it. A lot of time-consuming stuff. So I just did it out here with the space I had. That's the only thing I think I could really do better at this point was just put these machines closer to the hub to get a quicker response between levels. The first levels will go really quickly. Alright, so let me check these guys over here. Show this silly thing to have right there. And everything's fed there. I must have touched that belt on accident at some point and didn't notice it. Okay. And these up here. I guess I could show some of the logic I made underneath this layer. Green and blue, green and blue. Okay, so if you look at, I like going back down and have it the other direction easier. The way I designed it was down here, so it's easier for me to understand what I did. Okay, so like the shapes, I'm delivering 4 shapes to these filters. I'm just delivering the shape on the circuit. So if the object is that color and whatever, or that shape, it comes here. So let's see if I trace this thing back. So I'm delivering the color, the shape and the color here. And this paints it for a filter later on. So where's my input line? Okay, here's a trace. So here's the signal coming in. And this first object, this unstacker, takes the top layer, pushes it in one direction, put the rest of the stuff this way. So follow this line into this section of the machine. So it comes right here down here in the middle. And this is the first thing that gets it. And this thing here takes the color, pushes it one direction, takes the shape, pushes the other direction. So it basically unpaints the object. So the object goes down here to tell what object to push through. Since it's unpainted, and I got all objects coming in unpainted, so it just goes to the filter. So whatever object matches, if it's a star, if it's a square, whatever, it's taking the one corner, and in this case the bottom right corner, since this was lit up here, I believe. Yeah, top left. Yeah, but I'm rotating things around. It's taking that value, whatever shape it is, and saying release all that. So it's not the whole layer, it's just the one corner, which in this case would be the top right corner, but I got it turned. Yeah, this is turned 90 degrees to the right, so that's actually the top right corner, not the lower right. This part here should be face down here. So this is the right output, left output. So it's the top right corner. I was confused there for a second because it's a circle. Red circle is the top right shape. So anyway, that feeds that. The paint is kind of the same way. The paint gets pushed out this way, so like there's a purple line coming out here, going to all the filters of the paint, and whichever one matches the color coming in releases the paint through. That's all there is. Pretty simple. Straightforward. So the red paint allows flow through because that's the color. Then for unpainted objects, I use this color coming in to then say bypass the cutter, bypass the painting machines. Then painted objects come out here to match. This here we're breaking it up to match the corner. I do some filtering. I don't want to get into all that stuff. It gets a little more complex. But the object coming out of here, which is the corner piece, I get that object matched up and pushed out to this next section for stacking. And I use that value or signal coming out here to determine whether or not the other side has something or to skip it. In this case, the signal from the other end is coming here. If there was no signal, these true or false, these objects here, this NOT gate, if it switches the signal. So if there is a signal, this says 0. If there isn't a signal, this says 1. And this guy here, this transistor thing, pushes the value at the bottom through if this is true. So in this case, it's pushing this value through, which is that circle, which then goes to these filters to tell the bypass or not. So if there was no signal here, meaning there's no object on the other side to stack with. This would be true. It would push out. I use a gray circle. I'm painting a circle as my not value to bypass things. So it would send a gray circle down the signal. It would hit these filters and it's pushing out this red corner piece, which does not match a gray circle, so then it would bypass. So if I didn't have to stack something, these would see a full object gray circle, which would never be the case to stack, and it would just bypass this section. And I use this value for everything, actually, even where the possibility of a gray circle would exist, because then if it is a gray circle, it would be a valid value and would be pushing through, and a gray circle object would come through and just go through the filter fine. So it actually works even if the object is needing to be a gray circle. So this is a little complex. I don't want to get too much into that. But for those who played this a little bit might understand this a bit better. But this is a simple thing I came up with just to jump each side. This is what I use for the logic on everything. The main difficulty was making sure I had the object turned around coming in. So I get the signal coming here, I got to rotate it around to get the next corner for the next scan and everything to go through. But at this point it's just filters. If the object coming in here is not that shape, it gets deleted. There's all these filters. If this object is in this shape, delete it. And at the top here, coming out of this, I got one object that stacks things together, so the line coming out shows the same as the object on the belt, which comes up to the same thing, filter, same object, same idea for if the other side doesn't have an object. You send a gray circle value through to bypass the stacking, otherwise you're okay. And so on. So anyway, let's see here. Alright, so I think I'm at a point now where I can just release this guy and let it run through, but I gotta connect the endpoint to the actual flow here. I ran this extra line down. I guess I can just connect this and it would do the connection here. Delete these lines. Let's just do it that way. So the line goes out here and then comes right back. I can talk about the logic here real quick. So if this value is a 0, the filter says not true and pushes it out the other way, which then loads everything out. When this actually pushes an object through this belt down here, when it goes through all these switches, it hits this feeder here, it signals, yes, I have an object. Changes to a true value, which changes this as an OR, I believe, OR object, OR gate, which says if this line or this line is true, then push out a true value. So the way that works is an object comes here, changes the signal to a 1, this changes to a 1, which allows everything to open up. So all these filters waiting on something releases objects. Those objects didn't hit this, cause this to be true, and keeps the signal on true, because this one object going through here will just turn it to true and then back to 0. And then that release of objects through here will then turn these to true. This one here is the only one I got a flag on. We'll turn this to true and leave this on and leave everything on. And I also come back to that filter here to then feed this last line. So when that's true, this feeds straight until this last belt here basically runs out of juice and nothing goes through, then resets it back to 0. So we're at 177. We can watch this ending on this view real quick. Let's wait a little bit for this to should about 240, and then should release, and we'll see the numbers change here. And we'll just put the cursor right here so you can see the 0, the big 0 changing back and forth. Alright. Oh, I think it released before I got 240, I wasn't paying attention. But 1, and when the belt empties out, it should go to 0. I don't know how much delay it's got. Boom, 0, and everything's reset. Okay. So that's the logic there. Okay. Oop, wrong button. So now let's connect this up and see what happens. Let me save the game just in case I screw something up. Saved. Alright, your game has been saved. Alright. Let's jump to this view. Let's kill this guy. And cross your fingers. Alright. Okay, it's making an object. Alright, so nothing's going to be matched here. It'll just be this guy over here putting everything together. Yeah, you see here's the object here. Here comes the first ones. It's going to create some junk at first because it's leftover from the previous run. And it gets deleted, doesn't pass this point. And we get the good stuff come through, and they'll bypass the end because there's no stacking, and then to the hub. And I gotta imagine that these first few come through will hit that preferences. Middle lane, yeah, there we go. Third one's a little slower. Lane 2 in the lead. Boop. Third, 1.3. How often is a sample here? Okay, new level, so then this should clear out. Yeah, everything got purged on the right. I'm just gonna wait for this belt to clear. It's bypassing and it's just going to delete. So the next one, is this also just 2 layers? Yeah. Okay. So these other belts here are feeding my upgrade stuff. So upgrade, I have everything on X10. I just stopped there. Plus I don't have enough objects of this to upgrade. The only thing the automation can't do is these tricky objects like this guy and this guy that have that one object in a space and then another stacked on top of where there's an opening, where you gotta do some tricky mechanics to make this work. On my other game I got to level 359 and this didn't come up. So if this comes up, this machine will get stuck there and not make the proper object. Okay, here's the next one. Oh, next level. Alright, we're moving along. 2 layers. So it's making 2 layers. So if this was closer, if I had the machine closer to the hub, these would be getting it quicker. If I laid this out a little bit differently, where everything was right up next to the hub, because this, I think this design here is pretty compact and works well to deliver a lot in a short amount of space, small amount of space. The only way I can make it bigger, I think, is by adding another splitter to make this build up more before releases, or getting rid of my upgrade stuff here. I mean, there's no real need to have these unless you want it to go faster and faster, which I'll probably upgrade it as I go, maybe. We'll see. Alright, next shape coming through. And lane 4 in the end. Lane 4 in the yeah. Is that still 2 layers? Yep, so just simple stuff right now. Seems to be working pretty well. So far I'm happy. I just want to see like a 3 or 4 layer object come in. It's nice and clean, clears things up. Let's go check out the main machine here. There's the top layer, and then the bottom layer being stacked with it. See all the junk being filtered out, then it comes through. Just makes things more efficient, things slow real well. I had an issue on my last map. When I didn't do that, things would get clogged up and slow down, and the object here was to get the belts at full speed at all times, or as much as possible anyway. So this belts going in here are at the max speed of delivery. And I'm also delivering 4 belts instead of 1. And level 30 has been completed, so I was just trucking along here. So far, so good. I'm glad I found that one belt I didn't have set up right. So here, just things get cleared out, move on to the next section. These guys get made pretty easily. That's just some lag from the belt delivery from one side to the other. Can't do much about that the way I have things laid out. Just have to lay it out differently to make things a little more even. That's the only real efficiency I can do now, is just the layout I see. I think some of these designs I got are pretty good for the amount of belts I have and what I'm trying to do. Squeezing things together. Bloom. And still 2 layers. I'm not having any problems with object delivery or paint. Paint, everything's set up to deliver a full belt of everything. But paint, you don't need much. I can have a lot more painters for what I'm delivering. The shape's running at max speed, so I'm at capacity there. So that's the limiting factor. If I wanted more, I would have to double up this thing in the objects, and I could probably split the paint to double this up. And double everything else up to get 8 belts. But the limit I decided was I want 1 full belt of the shape. What can I do with that? And that way it gave me 4 belts. Basically when you cut each corner. So every corner, 1 belt per corner, so it adds up to 4 corners. Or 4 belts in total. Alright, 5 per second. So this goes for a while. I'm just going to let this guy run all night. Probably for several days and just see where it gets. I'm curious how high I can go before it runs out of steam. but probably just let this thing run every night and see how far it gets. Be interesting to see how far it goes. I'm curious. Like I said, the first game I made was just delivering one belt with a belt buffer to spike up the delivery, and that got me to level 359. And I could probably improve it, making the belts longer to give more time for it to build up, but I don't want to mess with it. I just wanted to redo the design, make the whole design better. And I could do that down here. Instead of feeding one belt to this, because this is the buffer here, really what does everything. Instead of one belt, I could do all 4 belts to build this buffer up. But there'd be some complexity there. Instead of one belt feeding of these, I got one belt feeding this section, one belt feeding this section, have another one here, then maybe cut these off and build the 4th belt, do this, and then release them all at once. But for these early levels, I mean, these 3 can deliver 60 items per second. It's just quicker just to have them go straight in than have this one belt build up a buffer. Just seems easier that way. Maybe in the future I will have 2 belts feed the buffer once it gets to the point of going past 60 items per second. Then that'll just help build the buffer faster to get to the levels quicker. You can break these up, and I may redo the design from that point. We'll see. I don't know how far it gets. Still, is that 2 layers? Hard to tell on these. Yeah, still 2 layers. But I'm liking it. Level 35 pretty quick. Alright, well, I may just skip some of the stuff and cut this section out maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. Then show some other objects later. Yeah, we'll just call it quits. Well, this is good enough for this video. I will come back and show some later footage. Right now we're on about to break level 35. Pretty easily. That's cool looking. Alright, well, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. If you like this at all, if you have any suggestions to make this better, let me know. It's an interesting little game. I like it. I enjoy it. And thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.